Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Ampliverse Book Club. This month, we read the novel "The Maid" by Nita Prose, which was voted Goodreads 2022's best mystery and thriller. So high accolades. Okay, okay. No, we're not bearing
the People's Choice Award.
The People's Choice Award. The people picked.
The people voted.
Yes.
What a choice.
Okay, but here is the lineup of today's book club members. First and foremost, thoroughly entertaining, intriguing, and utterly compelling Allie. Hello, Allie.
Hello.
Up next, we have one-of-a-kind heroine who will steal your heart, Catherine. Hello, Catherine.
Hello.
And finally, a heartwarming mystery with a lovable oddball at its center. It's me. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another conversation. All right. Like I said, we picked a People's Choice Award winner. We picked The Maid. And now we're going to go around the table and we're going to say how we liked this book. I think I'll start just because I feel like we'll see. I think I'll start and then I think we'll kind of, yeah. I feel like I'm more in the middle of this book. So it was a hard read for many reasons. I think for me personally, it was hard because yes, it is in this very clear perspective of Molly. And so when you are reading books like this, you really have to be like, there needs to be good qualities to really sink you in and believe and carry that you are letting yourself be carried by this one perspective, this entire book. And for me, it took a while for Molly to do that. I felt that it had to establish a lot of Molly's like quirks, which we'll get to later, as to, the fact that I have to call it quirks or like what makes her different. I had a tough time with kind of like following it because I was so hesitant because I just felt so bad for her the entire time. I did feel, the eyes, the snickering, the whispers, how her coworkers make fun of her. I felt that the entire time, even up to like basically the red herring where they think that, that she's framed for this murder, that I was like, I've lost all hope. I really hope this ends happy because I'm so sad right now. So it was hard to read because I just felt I empathize with her so hard. And I just throughout the book, I also just like at the same time couldn't relate with all the people around her because I was like, if I saw this person in my place of work, I would not be doing all these things to her. I feel like it would be very clear, and this will also probably still be involved in our conversation later on. But like I wrote on my notes that I'm too much of an ENFJ to ask for help anyway, that I would be like, everyone was just making her do everything for them. So I felt like really frustrated about that. But I did like kind of like the turn for, I was very happy that they were like, okay, she is a good person. She will get a good ending. Like she gets away. Like she does not get, punished for things that she didn't do. And like the things that I did like was that she was able to kind of like create these friendships. As soon as Charlotte and Mr. Preston came into the story, I was like, I am in. I want more. This is it. And great. Introducing Juan Manuel as a character where she kind of like develops a friendship and later down the road a relationship. I really like that. And so I was kind of like reading along for that. So it did kind of pick up for me, I would say, after like halfway through the book. So overall, yeah, sure. Overall, sure. I gave it a 4 stars on Goodreads. So, okay. Let's go backwards. Let's go Catherine next.
Okay. So I was a little bit disappointed because I love a good mystery.
We discovered it together in this podcast.
Together as a podcast, we discovered my love of a good mystery. And this ain't it, sis.
Also, I have not explained that I am at the lobby of the Regency Grand right now, too. That's why.
Oh, I see.
So,
see. Yeah. That was harsh. It's not that bad, but it was just like, I guess I had a really hard time, and I am a neurodivergent person. Like I'm ADHD AF. And I have that same enhanced sense of justice.
Yeah.
And I was aggravated by her for her lack of consistency with that enhanced sense of justice. Now I did have like throughout the book, I had that same moment where I was like, man, I hate all these people are taking advantage of her. Like I definitely had those feelings. And I also felt great relief when Charlotte and Mr. Preston came into the picture. Very relieved at that moment. I was like, okay, it's going to be okay, you know. But the ending though, I just felt like we took a sharp turn there at the end. And while it was interesting, I was like, like it just didn't feel aligned, you know? Yeah. So I did not enjoy it as much as I typically enjoy mystery. I can't remember if I gave it at least 3 stars on Goodreads. It was 3 or 4.
I think I looked at it. I think because it shows you what your friends rated it.
Right. Yeah, I gave it 3 or 4. Like I because I read it fast. Like it wasn't hard to listen to, other than me being like, oh, this poor kid, you know. But then I was just like, and the more I've thought about it, the more I've been like, not my favorite. Not my favorite. But it wasn't bad. It was, I'm glad that I read it.
Yeah.
So.
Allie, how about you? What are your thoughts on the book?
So I think that this was a great concept squandered. I think that the basic idea of it was very sound, but I think that it wasn't handled in a successful way. I think we'll talk more about
the main reason
what I'm calling the coded neurodivergence. I felt like that was a misstep. I thought that just overall, the way that it all played out, it just wasn't for me. And another interesting thing that I think in like looking at the reviews and talking to a couple of people about what they thought about the book, they were like, this is a really just like cozy mystery. And I was like, I don't know what's cozy about this. Like, what part of, to me, I'm like, if I think about like Agatha Christie and it's, you know, it's this kind of.
It's like, it's in a manor in the woods and everyone's wearing sweaters. And
it's like, no, this is kind of an upsetting thing that's happening. I'm not quite sure what part about it is cozy. So anyway, I still have not given it a rating on Goodreads because I feel the way that I feel about it is very like visceral. I feel really strongly about what bothered me about it. And I'm going back and forth where I'm like, am I judging it too harshly because of my issues with it? Anyways, it's as if anybody's out there like, what did she rate it on?
What will she say?
I mean, clearly RJ wanted to know.
No one's losing sleep over it. But it wasn't all the way there for me. It was kind of a disappointing execution, I will say.
That's very interesting. And I definitely agree. But let's jump in. Let's talk about Molly, Little Miss Molly the maid. This isn't the first time we've read, like a first person narrative. Like we read parts of Carrie were in that voice. Red, White, and Royal Blue was in that voice. I think Book Eaters was for like half of it, right? Like Book Eaters, like the past was her perspective or something like that.
My Sister, the Serial Killer.
Yes, Sister Serial Killer. Yes. So like we've read titles that have this. What I thought was interesting was like Catherine like gave us a little clue before I even read it, and then she was like, "Is anyone else getting like Curious Incident of the what is that?
Dog at Nighttime."
The Dog at Nighttime. So I was like, "Oh, okay. So they're gonna play like a kind of like something on the spectrum." And then as I was reading it, I noticed that a lot of it was like being very descriptive in order to kind of like establish that like this is how Molly thinks. She thinks in her Grant's quotes. She thinks, very process and orderly, the way she like kind of like everything is a step to step. But at the same time, I was kind of like, it wasn't like fully, and obviously, people are not stock characters. They're whatever. Like they're real people. They're real humans. So I did appreciate that there was like, she was like still yearning. She was still kind of like having these emotions of like, I know that they're talking about me. I wish they didn't, like, but she's trying to like process things with like how she knows how to process things. And so I did like that about it, but yeah, there's something half baked about like following her voice. I can't really pinpoint what it is. I don't know.
It's the lack of consistency for me. It's the lack of consistency, because the thing is, you know, I mean, again, the ending is very different than the whole story. And there's pieces in it that are not very consistent. But
when
like
you mean the ending, do you mean like the epilogue, or do you mean like how the story wraps up, like the few months later ending? Like after the trial?
No, I do not mean a few months later. I mean the parts where because I listened to it. I don't know if it was the epilogue or not. I don't remember. And I also read it a long time ago, like a long time
ago.
Yeah,
what event are you talking about as the end?
I am talking about, and this is massive spoilers, I am talking about the pillow situation with Mrs. Black.
Yes. So that was in the book that was labeled as epilogue.
Oh, okay.
So the full ending was the several months later after the trial. Manuel. Yeah.
Okay. And and like, I'm less bothered by the grandmother situation because I don't know how many choices they had. Mm-hmm. But I am very, it is interesting to me that it ends up, right? They were trying to frame her for this murder. And in the end, she has framed someone for this murder. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like that just, it doesn't sit well with me. It doesn't sit well. I don't like it.
Allie, what did you think of Molly? And like, you know, just like following, how was your experience trying to follow just her, like her voice?
You know, I think to Catherine's point about the inconsistency, it was just, it kind of baffled me a couple of times. And I think, you know, there's one thing of having like an unreliable narrator, which I think she pretty clearly was based on what we get at the ending. And
yeah, like she fully lied to us. Like,
yeah. I don't know. Have either of you read Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine?
Okay, so I was looking at the pull quotes in the book, and someone said, "No, we haven't had a heroine as charming as Eleanor Oliphant." And I Googled what it was.
So I read that a couple of years ago, but I really liked that, and I didn't have the same problems with it.
Do they share the same characteristics? Like there's like
kind of there's a difference there. And it's not like a thriller or mystery. It's just fiction that has kind of a twist to it that you don't necessarily see coming. And so in that sense, it's like, you know, there's one thing about having an unreliable narrator where you're not totally sure if you're supposed to believe them at all times. But it was like the first instance of that was when she pawned the wedding ring that she found, because it was because it felt like
very out of character.
She had been talking about going to Mr. Snow and being like, and this person did this, and this person did this.
Yeah.
And it was like, wait a minute, like what? I'm confused. So it was interesting.
It was like the author built rules for her to follow, but only when convenient.
Exactly. Story. And the other thing is like, I guess I feel like, because when she's having the conversation with the ex Mrs. Black, she's talking about how she knows all of these things that the entire book we've been led to believe she doesn't know. Like, if I'm remembering correctly, right? Like she knows that she's being snowed by these assholes. And it's like, how, like, none of what she says about the current Mrs. Black makes sense. None of what she like says in her head to us once we know that she actually knows who did it. And you know what I mean? Like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
And I think too, as I'm thinking and kind of processing all of this now, is one of the things that I had left in the notes was that I thought that she kind of had this thread of like the invisible people in our lives and how we don't think about them. I think, again, there was a lot of potential to develop that more. I thought one of the more interesting interactions in the book was when she was talking to the detective and she was like, you and I are alike. We clean up other people's messes. And the detective was like, whoa, I don't know about that. And I think when you think about someone that's like the ex Mrs. Black, who like, how do we talk about, like middle-aged women in our society and how they're kind of swept aside and that kind of like, oh, I see you and that kind of like recognition between each other. And so again, it's like, I think there were these really great opportunities to like pull out these themes that were already sort of there. And they just weren't.
I almost wish that the book was about her. I mean, the book is kind of about like her own personal morals of like, if I am a maid and my job is to clean, and this is a version of me having to clean this up, I would have much rather followed along a book of her and Mrs. Black and Giselle, and like her knowing those two, like, and to us knowing that those are the two truths. But I would much have rather follow that and be like, okay, who does she? Because I did think it was interesting of like, because I was trying to think about like, why did she let this pass and then it never brought up, like why did the truth pass? And she made a thing that was like, it reminded me of like my relationship with me and my gran. And I'm like, how? Because she's an older woman. How does she look like her? That's it. Like, yeah.
I'm thinking as you're saying that, RJ, about like all three women together. I'm thinking about like a Big Little Lies where they like all come together and there's a murder and they keep the secret and it bonds them. And also, sorry if I spoiled Big Little Lies for you.
It's been like 5-6 years, I think. So
and the book is even older. So
yeah.
But anyways,
that's so funny.
Yeah, I don't know. I just feel like the inconsistency is really what gets me, because it's not just the inconsistency of her choices, it's the inconsistency of what she says to us. Like, I partly wanted to go back and re-listen, but I was like, no, like that, because I was like, the things that she said made no sense. I'm like,
they're
no,
not real.
This book is gaslighting me.
Yes!
Like, what the fuck?
Which I mean, like, I'm a person who watched Knives Out too. And so it's like, okay, like there's a thing in like murder mysteries where yes, obviously you're supposed to be led to believe one way over the other.
Right.
And that's like a part of it. But I felt like this was
not
the
that
extreme of like, I really don't trust her now. Oh, wow.
This is not that.
It was a hat on a hat.
Yes. It was overthought.
Like,
there were too much.
The twist could have been her murdering her grandmother, but then there was the second twist. Of, But
it was crazy because I didn't even see that as a twist, because didn't the grandmother say like, I don't want to go to the hospital, so when I go, it'll be here? She
did, but
didn't, right? Wasn't that right?
I still found it to be a twist because she has sent this man who technically didn't, I mean, he's done wrong things, don't get me wrong, but he didn't murder anybody, to jail when she has murdered somebody and now she's not going to jail.
Also, this is off topic, but can I tell you, because this was where my mind is constantly like, when I'm reading a mystery, I'm like, what's it going to be? And so when she said that she hadn't opened her grand's door since she died, I was like, her gran is in the room. She was never dead. It's a psycho situation where it's revealed that his mom is a skeleton.
Yes,
I was like, that's what it's gonna be.
And it was to the point of like, I couldn't believe, like, I had lost a lot of trust by the time like the actual like crime of at least the like, what was it, Ronald? But I don't even remember his name anymore.
Rodney.
That crime as it was coming along, that I was like, well, great. Now I don't trust Juan Manuel. Is this real? Like, is Charlotte and Mr. Preston, are they actually real? Because there was that moment where they caught Rodney and then like the detective looked at her through the cafe, that I was like, oh no, was she wrong? Was she duped again?
Yeah, see, that was the thing is like, I found all of that stuff to be very predictable, and I thought that was intentional. Like as soon as it was clear that she was into Rodney and she was like, we haven't been on a date in a year. I was like, there's some shifty shit going on over here. Yeah. And, obviously we all knew when she's like, why are there powdered donuts? Like we all know what's up at this point.
Yes, yeah.
But like, I also never got shady vibes from Juan Manuel the whole time. So it was like, that stuff I found predictable. And so I guess that's why it was like, what is happening at with the end? Like, I just couldn't. I just couldn't. Because it's like, everything that she questioned to us as readers makes no sense. Everything that she like, it's like she was writing a diary as a cover up for the actual story. And that's what we read. And I'm like,
gone girl.
That's apt. Yes. That's what it feels like. Cause even to us, she's like, I've been lying to myself recounting the story because this is actually the truth.
The whole time she's been lying. All the things.
Look at me. I'm like, I need to get back to my room in the hotel. I can't deal with this.
Where's my key card?
Where's my key card? Oh, Cheryl. It also just reminded me, I think it was a Criminal Minds episode, but I remember there was one that was like a murder that was clean. And then it turned out that like all the maids killed the person. And like no one ever found out because there was
they cleaned up
left. Yeah. So I was like kind of thinking like, oh my God, what if there was something there? But anyway, that was because I was just like grasping, like, what is going on? Okay, let's talk about the elephant in the room. So while we were writing notes, I noticed that Allie kind of like wrote, the notes about coded neurodivergence.
Her own novel.
Her own novel.
I had a little bit of free time today.
Yeah, so she did a little bit of research, and I was actually shocked. So you found this article, and it is talking about this book, right? And like the issue of Molly, the character with this book, right?
Yes, I cited my sources. Happy to send the link to anybody that wants to question the veracity of the claim.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
Summarize. I tried to read it, but I was wrong about what time we were
Give
meeting,
us the abstract.
Yeah. So basically the big, I think, RJ, what you're saying, the elephant in the room is what I mentioned earlier, which is this kind of coded neurodivergence where, and I'll just read quickly this quote from an article that I found. Whether or not Molly is on the autism spectrum is beside the point, according to Prose, the author, who didn't label the Maid because she wanted to show, quote, what it means to be the same as everyone else and yet entirely different, unquote. If she had given her a diagnosis, some readers might focus on Molly's differences and miss the point. Well, I want readers to step behind Molly's eyes. I want them to live inside her skin, to live as her without any preconceptions. And I hope then that if we live as her, we learn to love her, unquote.
I am getting
so
major
to unpack there.
Yeah, I'm getting major, like, I'm not seeing color. Like I'm seeing past what it is. And I'm like.
And also, is she suggesting that if we were to say that the character had autism, that we would automatically not feel sympathy or empathy towards her?
Right. It was so crazy. What the point would be to like, what is it? She didn't want what it means to be the same as everyone else entirely. Differences would not be the point. Oh, beside the point. I'm like, but that was the point, was that she was different.
That's literally the whole point. That is the point.
I think that what bothered me and why I ultimately think it was a disservice for her to not specifically say, and I the reason why I'm continuing to say neurodivergent and not autistic is because I'm not a professional who can diagnose someone with anything.
With words.
And plus it's a fictional character.
Yes.
But that if you look at the reviews for this book, 90% of them are like, Molly is an autistic maid. And we don't know that she is, number one, but it feels like the author is trying to have it both ways, where it's like, I have like diversity representation in my book, but then if someone were to call her out on something being problematic or like it's, you were insensitive about how you portrayed it, then she can be like, oh no, but she's not autistic. She's just socially awkward.
Right.
Like you can't have it both ways.
I literally, I saw Allie writing this note and on the Google Doc. This is, behind the scenes. And I literally wrote the sentence, "This is why I don't like Dear Evan Hansen," because this is my exact same problem with Dear Evan Hansen. It is like, he's just socially awkward and different. That's why he does this. And it's like, but then I'm specifically talking about the movie because I've not seen it on stage. I've heard it's a little bit, I've heard it's a little bit more like, they're two different experiences. But in the movie, Ben Platt is fully playing him, or at least it's conveyed as that he's fully on the spectrum, and everyone is just like, very like here, very mean, very like whatever. And like if this was happening in the real world, his mom, who was a nurse, would be like, "You are not awkward. There's a disability going on."
And he was in so much therapy. His therapist would be like, "This is you have autism." You know what I mean?
Yeah. This is a girl who has literally, like, it's basically like a very sheltered life. She has had one person, and like I definitely agree with you, Allie. Like, as someone who, my brother is autistic, I like have grown up with this my entire life, and I also like have experience of that. Like, yes, people talk, like but like now we are so much more educated and well versed that even like, like the readers are the ones that are like giving a diagnosis to this character. And I feel like if this character was on the spectrum and it was very much like, and she even says it, I think I would have had a better experience. I think, well, because then it would have a point of view of like, okay, this is a person who is
a frame of reference.
Yes, a frame of reference, and like going through like a moral like journey, and like really questioning her morals, and like actively being like, I cannot think outside of my moral spectrum because I can't.
Except that she does.
Yeah. So it's like very much like, like it's like queer coding characters too. It's like I'm only picking when it is appropriate or when it is convenient.
Well, and the interesting thing, the thing about that quote for me that you read, Allie, was like, I mentioned that it gave me Curious Incident of the Dog at Nighttime vibes. That character is labeled as autistic. That boy is autistic. Yeah. I haven't read that book in a long time, but I remember feeling empathy for that character. And that was a long time ago, before we had all of the knowledge that we have now, before we had such a drive now to like build inclusion. And he was very labeled autistic. You know what I mean? And I had no issues experiencing empathy for this character. So it's like, it's interesting that that's how she would say that, because it just doesn't make any sense to me. So.
And Allie, you wrote this note about law enforcement too, if you want to speak on that, because I want to.
Yeah, I was talking to somebody, and she said that she had a friend who works with people who are on the autism spectrum, and that they had gone out on like a day trip or something, and that there was an issue with law enforcement where it was just a misunderstanding where the person, I guess the chaperone, the person leading the trip, had to kind of intervene on behalf of the person who was on the spectrum, because it just wasn't, the behavior, and I don't know the situation, but where it was
they
like
just needed the assistance.
Yes, suspicious in some way. And I think that, again, where I'm talking about the potential of this book, where it was like, I feel like if she had explicitly said, then she could have shown this whole light on this very real issue that happens, where their behavior, by very nature of who they are as people, comes across as suspicious to law enforcement because it's not understood by society writ large.
I mean, it's literally gotten Black people killed that are autistic,
Yes.
And also it's just baffling, because it's like, we want to see her for who she truly is or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But then it's like,
that's part of who she is.
That's part of who she is. But then at the ending, then if she's flawed, it's, I don't know, like now all the jigsaw pieces are coming together of like, oh yeah, like if they just made this a part of her character, then like It would have been, I don't know, just more complete, I feel like. Our last note we made was that we felt like the story was like very much a story of convenience. And I think lucky for us, we've read mysteries before. And so I'm curious like how this fared to the mysteries that we've read. And like how your experience overall with mystery. I think I know for me, like speaking, like when I was reading it, I just knew the points of like, okay, it's got to set up everything. And then there's going to be, you know, a red herring or someone who thinks is the suspect. And then it all comes out. And so it was interesting to like watch it from like one single perspective. And the entire time I kept thinking about like, cause we know that this is going to be a movie with Florence Pugh. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of like picturing how this plays out. So how did you all feel? I know, Allie, you had notes about convenience.
I think the biggest thing to me, and I just want to say this because I need it out in the world. Are you really telling me that this like 5-star hotel, how many 4-star? I don't know how many stars a hotel can get, had not one surveillance camera anywhere? Not a single one.
Oh,
thank you. If it was
Mr. Snow.
With a Mr. Slow and literally like all of your high level clients, no way.
Speaking of Mr. Snow, what was going on in his hotel?
I thought he was going to be involved. I did think he was going to be involved.
I did too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was very happy that Cheryl wasn't, which made me very happy that like sometimes people are just completely useless and incompetent.
Sometimes people are just total assholes, and that's
people
just who they are.
Terrible. So I was like, oh well, that's nice that Cheryl just was an awful person.
Yeah, she was. She was an asshole.
Now, the world building of the hotel could have been done. And like Allie and I literally, we were like, we don't have to talk about this on the pod, but where the fuck was the story? Like, were we in New York? Were we in the UK?
Okay, here's what I thought. I thought that we were in the States because of the way everyone else talked.
Yep.
And her gran was British.
Oh, so
and remember, because she took everything that her gran said and like parroted it, right? So I think that's why she said things like trolley and like why she spoke, you know, very proper according to Mrs.
So then
Black.
Would she have moved like a long time ago if she had like that full relationship with? Yeah,
I think Molly was born in the States, but she was raised by her British gran, who she saw as the end all be all of everything, and so she picked up all this British lingo. That's the vibe.
But Mr. Preston was asking for a cup of teas too, so
he knew her back in the day. He knew her back in the day. He came from England too.
Both English.
Sure. Look at us trying to put pieces together because they weren't.
That's a good explanation though, Catherine.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't know where they are.
I don't know where I literally was like, I feel like I'm in Times Square because I'm like, it's that Olive Garden. It's that giant Olive Garden, right?
Also, speaking of like product placement, RJ. Did Olive Garden underwrite this book?
Oh my God. I did. I will.
I do love a good soup and salad.
I highlighted those on my Kindle. Absolutely. Cause I was like, I love, and that's why that it just adds more of the, like, if she was on the spectrum, it would have made sense. Cause it's like the hyperfixation of things, the like order and process of like, this is the place where we go. This is the place where we go, period. You know, like stuff like that I was just like, oh, it is so many ideas half baked that I felt like rushed. And I mean, not to like just, the writer did a great job. The author did a great job of creating a story, but it was just like, it was kind of interesting how like this felt like it swept up people and.
Right, that's what I was going to say.
It was a Good Morning America pick, and you know, it was like,
right, okay. That's what really blows my mind. I'm like, maybe I could write a book.
People, I think, will really do anything for a murder mystery because when I read Where the Crawdads Sing, I was like, no,
Oh, really?
But people went crazy for it.
Yeah,
so I really think that people are just desperate for a murder mystery and assume.
Oh, I could do better than that.
Catherine, please.
Catherine,
Next
please.
NaNoWriMo.
Yes, please.
Y'all, I'm in.
50,000 words. You can do it.
I can do it.
Oh my God.
All right.
Okay. Last thoughts out there. A meh, a fine, a sure.
I would like, honestly, to contrast it with The Curious Incident of the Dog at Nighttime. So if anybody has read those two things recently,
no, that's good.
I should reread it because I read it a long, long time ago.
Yeah, me too. It was a really long time ago, but I was like, because I feel like he was framed for killing an animal of some kind or something. Like I can't remember all the details, but I feel like this is like the cheap, like this is the Wish version of A Curious Incident of a Dog at Nighttime from what I remember. So
awesome. Well,
I'm gonna give it 2 stars.
Okay.
Okay.
Can't wait to see it.
Because you know what? A 3-star, I'll reread. I'm not going to reread this.
Wow.
Okay. I like that you have that definition.
Yeah. That helps. Well, awesome. Well, thank you everyone for talking us through The Maid. We did not have a next selection because we're actually going to be taking a small break. But that means you have all the time to watch, listen, read through all of the books that you have missed. Because people have reached out and said, like, I know that you guys do a book club. I haven't done any, but I really want to. Well, now's your time. Catch up on all of them. We've picked some great ones and some fun ones to talk about. So this is definitely, if you get to the end of the list and you want to read one more, sure, go ahead, read this. But
read it and tell us we're wrong.
That's true. Exactly.
Read it with The Curious Incident of the Dog at Nighttime.
Yes. Do a double feature.
Give us the book report.
But any of the books that that we have read here in the book club, you can find them on the Ampliverse bookshop. And if you purchase a book there, it not only helps the Ampliverse, but also a local bookstore in your area. So thank you everyone for watching or listening along to the Ampliverse book club. You can find us on social media at the Ampliverse on Instagram. And if you want to keep the conversation going, you can email us. You can join the Discord server that's linked on the episode. And if you love the show and the others we do here in the Ampliverse, and if you feel obliged to tip, you can on our Ko-fi. That's also linked here. Allie, Catherine, thank you so much. I always have so much fun talking about these characters, and I'm glad that, we're able to always just go for it. I love it. Thank you, everyone, and we will see you next time. Until then, read on. Bye.
Discovering voices, building worlds. The Ampliverse.